Welcome back to Quietly Curious. This is the place where we take a closer look at the things that don't quite add up, from technology to mystery to modern life. Today's story begins with something that seems simple: a travel app. But over time, it became one of the most controversial government tech projects in Canada. This is the story of the ArriveCan app. In 2020, the world changed almost overnight. Borders closed, airports emptied, governments scrambled to respond to a global pandemic. In Canada, the federal government introduced a digital tool meant to make border crossings safer. The app was called ArriveCan. Travelers entering Canada were required to submit information before arrival: vacation records, quarantine plans, travel history. The goal was simple: streamline health checks at the border and reduce physical paperwork. Millions of travelers eventually downloaded the app. On the surface, it looked like a typical pandemic solution, but behind the scenes, something else was beginning to raise questions. Over time, reports began to emerge about the cost of ArriveCan. At first, estimates were modest, but as investigators unfolded, the total spending tied to the project climbed. Eventually, some reports suggested the total cost could reach tens of millions of dollars. For critics, this raised an obvious question: how can an app that mainly collects travel information cost so much? After all, many private companies build complex apps for far less. Suddenly, what started as a public health tool was becoming something else entirely: a political controversy. Much of the scrutiny focused on how the project had been managed. Rather than being built entirely inside government, parts of the work were outsourced to contractors. One company that came up repeatedly in discussions was GC Strategies. The company had reportedly helped coordinate subcontractors working on the project. But critics argued the layers of subcontracting made it difficult to understand where the money was actually going. Parliamentary committees began asking questions. Audits were requested, and Canadians started wondering whether the system designed to track travelers had its own transparent problem. The controversy soon reached the national stage. Members of Parliament demanded explanations from government officials. The administration, led by Justin Trudeau, faced pressure to explain how the spending had grown so large. Supporters argued the pandemic created urgent conditions. Governments everywhere were forced to act quickly, but critics countered that urgency should not eliminate oversight, especially when public money is involved. What makes the ArriveCan story so interesting is that it sits at the intersection of several modern forces: technology, government, and crisis. Digital systems are increasingly becoming the backbone of how governments operate. Apps manage healthcare records, taxes, immigration, travel, but technology also introduces new layers of complexity. When something goes wrong, it can be difficult to see where the problem started. Was it bad planning, bureaucracy, contracting systems, or simply the chaos of a world reacting to a crisis? The ArriveCan controversy may eventually fade from headlines, but it raises a deeper question about modern life. As governments rely more on digital systems, transparency becomes harder and more important. Because behind every simple app, there may be a bunch more that have a complicated story. We'll leave today's episode. A simple travel app that turned into a national debate about technology, accountability, and government spending. Sometimes the most ordinary tools reveal the most complicated stories, and those are exactly the kinds of stories we explore here. This has been Quietly Curious. My name is Erwin. Deep dives into tech, mystery, and modern life.